So the first foundations you'll build will be the original 2x2 with 2 of them raised. Main loot will go here for now and the roof bunker on this side. Let's wall that in like this. The first door should go here. Make sure the ceiling is all the same height like this, and then the TC can go into this corner. Since this base has a lot of building blocks and I don't want this video to be an hour long, I'm going to use the final building pieces like doors and deployables in the video instead. These garage doors should all face towards the loot room so that they don't stick out through each other. The way this bunker is laid out looks like this. 7 sleeping bags total, the level 1, 2, and then 3 go in the same spot, and we have a pretty decent amount of storage in that loot room. Next, let's add on the roof bunker mechanism. We'll add in the following building blocks. It should be said that once you want to open the bunker, you will need to have a garage door here so that you can pass through the gap to get in and out. To open this bunker up, you add a twig floor frame here and then this triangle roof. Upgrade it to the same material as the other roof and then it forms the gap. One thing I like to add now, since the height of this jump here is terrain dependent, is this triangle. This will make the jump height the same no matter where you build it. Also, to close this bunker, simply break this twig floor frame. The final deployables that go in this space are 4 boxes underneath the roof mechanism. Everything here is in its final position now. This is not the only bunker in the base, as you will see later on, but this should be enough for the start. As far as the final building material goes, everything in here that is a foundation, wall, or ceiling should be HQM. Pretty much everything except for the door frames, which are regular metal. And also all the shelves for the boxes can be left sheet metal. Now obviously you'll want to upgrade this over time instead of all at once like here, but this is the final building grade at the end. Next we'll bring the front part up like this, which will separate our open bunker from the outside. It also allows us to build walls around the second floor. We can also close off the roof except for here where the hatch up will go. We'll want 2 1x1 loot rooms here, so add in half heights and then separate the rooms. A wall frame on the front of each one, and we'll also be using 3 ramps, 2 in the left room and 1 on the top of the other. This triangle is optional, you'll see what I use it for in a second. Now one thing I want to make really clear here is it is important never to build anything above this roof. Not a low wall, not a wall frame, nothing. This will ruin the bunker mechanism permanently. Now once again, add different doors as you require them, but the final ones here will be garage doors. As far as the upgrades on this section, we'll want all of the outer walls of the 2x2 to be HQM in the end. The entrance pieces here can be all sheet metal, the frames, and the half walls. On the inside, you can see I've added in all of the utility and storage. The ramps, frames, and floor tiles are all metal now. And you can see we have a repair bench over here on that triangle. I like this because you can access it from below. Now this is a pretty modern setup. I wouldn't call it cutting edge, but it is pretty solid. The next thing we'll want to add will be the basic footprint of the outer TCs. There will be 1 on each side, totaling 4. We will be adding in stuff to make this TC stronger later on, but let's start simple. Here's how to build out to replicate this section. First build these 2 triangles, and then we'll want to build out 8 squares. On the 9th spot here, build a triangle and demolish everything before it. Next we'll build back half moons until we get close enough to fit a square. This is permanent and it needs to be raised, so upgrade it to stone. You can then get rid of all the twig behind it. Next you'll want to look at the main base and build a square to the left of it, followed by 2 triangles. The opposite side only needs 1 single triangle. This will get us proper gaps where we need them while maintaining overall symmetry in the design. Next we'll want to face away from the main base and add in these 3 triangles, which will become our entrances later on. To properly place the external TC, you'll build out 4 low square foundations like this and add a triangle on the end for the TC. We'll be adding on more to each of these TCs later on when we build our compound, but for now a garage door should be fine. You'll most likely be building this out of stone in a server, but the eventual goal here will be metal. Next you can repeat this step for the remaining sides and then it should look like this. The next thing we'll want to add will be 1 layer of walls to this new footprint. This will give you more space to work in. If you're facing the base, you'll want to add the wall frame on the right side triangle. The rest of each section can get full walls facing like this, along with the second level above. You can start with any door, but an armored double will be the final one. Repeat this on the remaining sides and it will then look like this. At this height, we can add in our inner peak downs. We'll be utilizing both the main core's TC and the outer TCs for this. First, add 2 triangles to each side of the main 2x2 like so. The next 2 triangles should attach to the outer TCs, which will leave these gaps. For the remaining spaces, we'll use squares. If we face the door below like this, we want to place the floor here so that we have the largest gap to defend the door raid from. Now we have the inner peak downs in place, and for the time being, this seals in around the 2x2 so we are a bit safer. Now we'll put on the second layer of walls. Placing this door on the right side square while facing out will allow us to section this area off later on. Repeat this for the other 3 sides and then the base will look like this. Now I want to talk about these gaps between each section. There are 2 times you can get rid of them. If you choose to build up the entire section at once out of stone like this, then you can come into the corner here and rotate the end walls. This can only be done in stone stage if you choose to build this entire thing though. Now most groups will only want the inner wall up at this time to save materials and compound. So let's say enough time has passed where you can no longer rotate the wall. You can simply wait until you're ready to upgrade and then rotate it. You can see the difference in the size of the gaps is pretty big. Keep in mind that this will need to be done on both sides when you do choose to do it. It also includes the door frame here. In the final base, all of this section is sheet metal, including the parts that make up the inner peak downs as shown here. Now we can bring everything up another level. Keep in mind the entrance is on this side and the hatch is here. First we'll add these 2 doors leading into the core, and then a wall and hatch on this side, and then on the opposite side of the hatch. These will be the way up, and once they are marked out, you can then start walling in the following places. First we can secure the 2x2 part with doors, walls, and then a top. We add 2 more frames here for later. This is where our mixing tables will go. Next we'll want a wall around this first edge. Once you have that in, the next thing we could do is add a roof on top so that we can move around this corridor without worry. Now we'll want to build the exact pieces in slightly different places than the peak downs so that we limit the gaps from the top. Basically, we want to build 3 triangles on each side of the 2x2 that leaves the gap on the edge like this. That leaves us with 2 pieces on each corner. We want to place the square so that the big gap doesn't end up in the same place as it is below, like this. The triangle should then fit right next to it. We want to do that on every side. For the hatch placement, we want the ladder to end up opening toward the 2x2 so that it doesn't block the hall when it gets opened. Once you have all of the gaps the same as shown here, we can go inside where we have some doors to add. There will be 2 on each corner to separate the base into sections if raiders get in here. The first frame, next to the big gaps, can only fit in one spot. The other frame should be on the triangle that is attached to the 2x2, not the square. Repeat this once again for each side. I like to add double doors here that swing just like this. This will provide slight cover if a lot of walls get blown out. It won't be a game changer, but it is something. The next thing we'll want to do is bring up the outermost walls on each side up to the top level. At this height, we'll be adding in the outer peak downs here. We'll use the ramp trick as part of this. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that we have the same problem with the gaps as we did on the first 2 layers. So either rotate the walls now as they're stone, or you'll have to wait till you upgrade them to metal later on. Once you upgrade this to metal and rotate the walls, it will look like this. If we have a look on the inside, you can see we have upgraded everything in here to sheet metal as well. I've added doors to each corner and lockers to rekit from. In here we have 6 mixing tables behind 2 garage doors. Now keep in mind, you'll most likely build the entire base, not piece by piece like this of sheet metal. I'm only doing this in the final build grade just to save your time. To build our outer peak downs, we must first bring this up 1 more level so that we can seal the top of it. First thing to do will be adding walls around the entire base like this. It's bad if raiders can get into your peaks from one side and access all of the sides after, so we'll section this off into 4 parts to restrict this. We'll add a frame here and then one next to it here. If we do this on all 4 sides, there will be 4 different sections, 1 for each side of the base. Once you have those in, we can then add walls in between the frames to secure deeper parts of the base. You can see from up here how the routing will work in a raid from any side. This next part, we will need to use the entrance as a guide for its placement. We'll want to come out of this hatch and build a frame on this exact spot. Since there will be a full 2x2 roof bunker above us, we'll need to accommodate the half heights that it requires underneath. We can do so like this. Once that's in, we can seal the rest of the 2x2. Kind of a weird thing to build right there, but it's very strong. Next thing we'll want to do is build 3 triangles on each side of the 2x2 like we did below. We are basically trying to build as much of this part on the main 2x2's TC. This means the gap should be here. Next we can add 1 triangle onto each of these sides. Now we have 4 squares open and 2 of them will be hatches. So using this as a guide, we'll add 1 here. Now there are 2 orientations here. We want it to be on this one. Same on the other side too. When you place the hatches here, I like them to open like this so that they don't block the walkway below. For the 2 last squares, we'll use the same orientation, but we'll use floor tiles instead. For the edge, if you look outward, you'll want a frame on the left side here. This hatch will lead into the outer peaks and also up to a bedroom that we'll be adding here later. The rest we could just fill in with regular tiles. Repeat this for each of the sides and then it should look like this. Now one thing we want to stop is people being able to land on your roof and jumping into your base. So we can seal it off with 2 full walls here. Next we'll build the actual peak downs. The easiest way to do this is using this twig buildup. This triangle here is permanent. We can use these 2 temporary squares to get the correct height for these 2 pieces over here. We need 1 ramp to be higher up like this and on a floor tile. The ramp trick is done after connecting another ramp. You can get rid of the floor under it and the ramp remains. This gives you some cool angles to work with from above. The only downside to ramps is that you can't shoot rockets through the gaps, so we'll need a gap on each side of the peak downs for this purpose. This will naturally become part of our fast way up on each side of the base. We can build this by adding a door here and then a hatch in the back. Above the door will be a window. We should add a vertical embrasure here to stop raiders from taking advantage of these angles. We'll also want 1 more window frame above this one, but don't put vertical embrasures in this. So what is this for overall? Anyone who's been in a raid knows that control is everything. If you lose your beds, you lose control of main parts of your base, you're in trouble. This gives you the option on every side of the base to run in from an outside bag and gain access vertically, really quickly, and semi-securely. The problem with putting an embrasure here is the whole point of this angle is to have a gap to shoot rockets through, and embrasures just make it harder. This allows you to aim, shoot, and scoot out of danger. Obviously, we want to repeat this on all the remaining sides and then upgrade everything to sheet metal. Now I've upgraded everything in here to metal. This makes these ramps much easier to use as peak downs and also increases the raid cost throughout this entire level. I've placed garage doors on each of these frames, both facing in. In here we have a room that I like to use for electricity. We can actually add a frame here for a garage door. This other frame here gets an armored door since it goes into the inner 2x2 core. One thing that should be added here is 2 doors to section off each side of the base, like we did on the floor below. I use garage doors here instead, and I do this on every side. These frames are much easier to place since they can only go in one spot on each side. Now you could put anything on this floor that you would like, but for me, the deployables in here, I like to add a couple of lockers on each side, since in an online raid you will be using this level a lot with the peak downs. In this next section, we will be adding this roof bunker and bedrooms into these outer sections here. The first thing to do will be adding an entire level so we can bring up the entire edge with full walls. Now since each of these bedroom sections will be closed off only to the hatch, meaning you won't be able to access them through this side on this floor here, we can close them off like this. This should look like this when done. In order to get enough stability for the entire ceiling here, we will first have to build a 2x2 bunker in the center. The roof of the bunker will go into this spot and the rest of the 2x2 can get closed in. We'll want to add a half-height floor under the roof like this, and then another one on this side. We'll close this off with a half wall. Opening this bunker is the same as any other roof bunker. In the end, this will be HQM. For now, you can upgrade it to metal or to stone, whichever you have more materials of. With that in place, we can come to the top and start filling in the ceiling. This will be almost identical to the way we did it one level below. On this last side, you'll notice there isn't enough stability. This is because there is not a frame or wall where the roof is, so we'll need to add frames here, which works out well because in the end, we want doors before the bunker anyway. We don't want hatches above each other since that makes it a little bit easier to raid, so we'll put a floor above the two spots where the hatches are down below. We'll add frames to the remaining two sides. The top should now look like this. For the ceilings above the bedrooms, we can simply fill all of that in with solid floors. Once again, place the hatches so that they open and don't block the walkway. Now the top is finished and it should look like this. It's pretty obvious that there's a roof bunker up here, but that's fine. This isn't the top floor and it will get covered soon. Once you get on the inside here, we'll want to add 2 frames on each corner to separate the floor into different sections. Now I've upgraded everything into its final state and added in all of the deployables. You can see the bunker is now full HQM. The inside of this bunker is exactly the same as the one we built at the start, minus the TC. Having 2 roof bunkers like this, separated by a few floors vertically, gives you the option to store main loot up high, down low, or split between. In the hallway, I've added garage doors. I like to use a lot of lockers in my builds to re-kit, but this floor can also have some boxes for some extra storage. Now each of the bedrooms can be accessed from the outer peak down level like this. As you can see, I've added 3 beds to each room, which will total 12 in the base. There is also room on the end for some storage and kits, which is secured by a garage door. On the floor below, you can see how some of these walls are now HQM. since they are connected to the bunker directly above us. To give you a visual connection, check out this wall here and where it is in the bunker. It also needs to be HQM. All of this part that is dropped down 1/2 level is connected to such a wall down below. So for the defense floor, we could first add all of these squares. To get the required stability on the final 2 triangles, we will need to build supports all the way up from the ground. To be able to place more turrets later on, we'll extend this up 1/2 floor after the first set of frames. Then we can extend it right up to the top. After that, you can get the 2 triangles into place. Repeat this on each of the other sides. With the full footprint down, we could then add in the frames for both the doors and the windows. Next, we'll separate the inner part of the base from the defense floor. If you stand in the middle, you'll want a door frame on the right side here with the full wall on the left. We'll do this on every side as well. To complete this, we'll want to wall in around the squares too. We want the hatches to be on the inside of this wall, and the squares that don't have hatches too, just to keep it symmetric. Next, we want to wall in the main 2x2 like this with 1 door in. Next, we'll need wall frames for stability. So on each of these that have 2 overhanging squares next to each other, add these 2 frames. Next, add a frame to the square that is 1 over to the right of what we just did. On the double triangle overhang here, add in these 2 frames, which we can add doors into, which will section off this floor so that if raiders gain access to it, they can't free roam around the whole ring. The last set of door frames goes onto the remaining square overhang like this. Next, add these frames for hatches, 1 spot to the right from the garage doors that lead in. For this top ceiling, we'll first need to pay attention to these gaps. I would place the two pieces next to them first so that you don't change the position of the gaps by accident. We can now fill in all of this stuff. For this top roof, we're going to want the gaps to be up against the 2x2 in the middle of the base. You can do that like this. Now it will look like this, and once you add the hatches and upgrade it all to metal, it's almost done. First, add the doors to keep people from getting in, and also the embrasures. On the inside here, we'll want to add 2 door frames with garage doors to each corner that we can. There will only be one exception here, where this roof sticks through. We still want 2 doors on this side, so we'll just have to move it over one spot, and this will work just fine. Now in here, you can do anything you'd like. Now personally, and for my group, we would just put a bunch of large boxes in here to store the loot we get from the raids as quick as possible from the roof where we land the heli. The next part in the middle here will be our heli garage and should be built like this. Now everyone has a favorite set of things they like to make their roof out of. The layout of this has a decent amount of options. I will show you what I would build up here. The ideas behind these angles are a lot to explain, so I would just show you where everything goes. First, put a triangle roof on each of the 2 triangle overhangs like this. Next, we'll want to put a regular slanty roof on each side of the triangle roof, but not all the way at the edge. On the right side of the right slanty roofs, we'll want to add a double door that swings out. On each of the double squares, we'll want a double door on the right side that swings out, but 2 windows with vertical embrasures along the edge as well. On the double triangle overhangs again, we'll want to place these 2 low walls, and then a frame here that holds up a triangle. This can give circumstantial extra angles as is, but you can also use these for spotlights to block the raider's vision. I like to also add a roof to the top of where these windows are. This will block a raider's vision during the night if they are looking up. Basically, instead of being able to silhouette you from the ground, they will see complete blackness from the roof that is over you. You can also add a couple of low walls on the top here, which allows you to stand up here as well and take a little bit of cover when needed. Now I will be making another video on how to compound this fully. This will also add extra raid cost to the TCs. There's also a bunch of electricity for this base, and I'm working on that video right now. It will be out as soon as possible. And that is pretty much the base. Now I kinda maybe sorta ran out of time to get this out by force wipe, so the editing was a bit chunky, but let me know what you think of the overall design. Thank you. See ya!